America right now is suffering from Alzheimer's, from dementia, memory loss. We are suffering in so many respects collectively as a people. America is. And the reason for that is many, but when you have a patient, a relative, a grandparent, a parent that suffers from dementia, suffers from Alzheimer's, what they do is they lose themselves. They lose their history. You are your history. You are who you were, whom you knew, what you did, what you accomplished, where you worked, the storyline of your life, your favorite songs, accomplishments, failures. This is who you are. Who you are is who you were. And if you can't remember or recall who you were, if it means something, you disappear. There was a wonderful, it was terrible, but there was a wonderful PBS documentary that a friend of mine was in, and it was about a woman who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she said to her family, I want you to record me now through the travails, through this. I want you to do this. I want you to take the viewer through this. No matter how horrible it is, I give you consent. I consent to this. I consent to you do this. Please show people what this is. Show people how I am. Show people what I go through. And it was horrible, frightening, exceedingly frightening. That's what America is right now. Because we are suffering as a collective group. First and foremost, we have no memory. We have no memory. We don't remember anything. Nothing sticks. We are the United States of amnesia. Gore Vidal said it. Number one, we don't remember anything. Part of our dementia. Number two, that which we remember, it doesn't mean anything to us. We don't know exactly what to do with it. We're not even sure, well, what does this mean exactly? What does this mean? How does this work? We don't know. We're not sure, well, what did this event mean? This event 22 years ago, which social media folks would prefer you just not talk about. We would really prefer you just not. We prefer you not talk about this. If you don't mind, could you just not talk about it? Maybe that would be really great if you didn't talk about it. Don't go through this. Don't understand the significance of this. I asked one time people, I forget what it was. It was an event. It was an event planner or somebody that I forget the context of it. And I said, what are the worst times? We're just talking. I said, what are some of the worst times? What are the worst times for you to schedule things? You know, Christmas and this. I said, what about events? Pearl Harbor? Nah, nobody remembers. How about 9/11? No problem. 9/11? People don't recognize even the word, even the phrase. If you say 9/11 to me, 9/11, not 911. Charlie Rangel used to say 911. And I'm always thinking, did he say it like that on purpose? Is he trying to disabuse us of our connection to this? I don't know. But nobody cares about this. So our memory is gone. The significance of the memory is gone. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does this make sense to you? Is this something that you kind of dig? Because I hope so. I hope you dig it. Because the reason why I hope you dig it, let me get rid of this. The reason why I hope you dig it is because, hang on a minute, what am I doing here? There we go. That's more like it. Wait a minute. Hang on. Wait a minute. Stop for a second. That's it. There we go. Sorry about that. I'm a bit discombobulated. I've been thinking about so much today. We don't remember things. We don't care what it means. And we're not interested in what happened. I've got people who are friends of mine. You don't understand it. I'm a part of the New York scene, kind of the news scene, the Emmy scene, the national, whatever the Academy of TV, whatever this stuff is. And I've known so many people, and I still know people in the business, in TV, in radio, and who were there that day, this day, and what they talk about is their own personal remembrance of where they were. They can't even tell me what happened via them, something out of themselves. It's always themselves. This is what they want to do. It's always that. They tell us this through themselves. This is what I did. This is where I was. I don't care where you were. Well, what do you mean? Because of our selfishness, our solipsistic, the way we are, it's always through ourselves. I talked to one friend of mine, this guy, big news guy. I said, "What do you think about Building 7? Did you ever get to the? Did you buy the NIST report on that one?" Imagine the look. It's like watching an Ed Witten lecture on supersymmetry. He looked at me and said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Building 7, the NIST report, 5:20 p.m., the third building that fell." Now, he was there this is an anchor type. This is one of the biggest names who tells everybody where I was. We were on the air 24 hours. We had a command center. We had our people in the police department, in the fire department. I said, "How did you miss this? How about subsequent? How did you miss this?" I'm not telling you anything. It's just a very simple fact. North Tower, South Tower, Building 7, 5:20 p.m. Don't you remember this? Remember what Giuliani said about that? Remember when he came out? He said, "They told us it's going to fall." Remember? Did you remember? Did you ever follow up anything? No. You only cared about this by virtue of your own personal, selfish point of view. How did you not miss this? How did you not miss this? I don't understand this. You show people, look at this. What is this? And you show Shanksville. They know a little bit. Who was Todd Beamer? Let's roll. What happened with that? Who was he? Where is he now? Where's New Baltimore? Where's Indian Lake? What is this? Where's the debris? What's going on? You want to talk about the Pentagon? No, they know nothing. They know. This is the part that gets me. So let's go back. Number one, we take an event and we destroy your memory of it. That's number one. Or number two, if you do remember, we remove the significance other than yourself, because we all are living through a selfish lens. How does it affect me? There was a thing years ago. It was actually very good on Saturday Night Live, and Al Franken did this one line, and I loved it. It was really good. And he said, "But I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking throughout this discussion. You're thinking, how does this affect me, Al Franken?" And I've stolen that line. And whenever and I know what you're thinking, how does this affect me, Lionel, as some people say. I don't know why they say it. Okay. So we don't remember that. To this day, we don't know what it means. They asked somebody the other day, I forget who it was, don't hold me to it. Maybe you heard it, maybe you can tell me. They said, "Why isn't the president going to 9/11? Because this was here in the nation's financial capital, right downtown. I can point it to you. Right downtown. That ugly Freedom Tower. I don't believe in ghosts. Well, I don't know enough about them. I get the creepiest feeling. Real creepy. Because remember the way a ghost works. And this is important. It was explained to me years ago. You only have a ghost when a person is mistakenly or interrupted in terms of the death. You don't have a you're never there's never such thing as a 90-year-old ghost. Grandma is never a ghost. But a person who's murdered, a child who was murdered, a person in an accident, war, mental hospitals, prisons, executions, when people are killed or who die in an early stage or for whatever's worth, that is when it happens. So when you go there is nothing but the souls of people you don't even know. They don't even know if people died there. There are people who just never came home. They didn't do a role. They assumed they were there. Maybe they talked. Maybe they, I guess I'm not sure. This is the part which I find interesting. But it was the strangest thing that happened. When you go there, there's a big Apple store, and there's this shops, and I don't know what it is. Do you know? I think it was the 1 year. Remember, honey? I think it was the 1 year. Now listen to me. And if you know me, I'm not into things that are, I don't know what the word is. I don't get into the supernatural at all, but I did see something interesting. On the day of I think it was the first recollection, they actually were reading out the names of all the people who died. And I forget what it was, Channel 4, which is the NBC affiliate. Anyway, they were showing this at this site, Ground Zero. And all of a sudden, this whirlwind came about. This whirlwind, this vortex was fabulous. Fascinating. Why? What was this about? Why? Did it mean anything? I don't know. Did it mean anything? I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't tell you. But I thought that was just interesting. And you can read into it. Many of you will say, oh, yes, those were the spirits. I don't know. I thought that was very interesting. So anyway, so they asked somebody from the administration, why isn't the president going? Well, we don't go to Pearl Harbor every year. Now, let me stop for a second and explain something to you, some very important things. What is the significance? What should you know? And also, what can you go out and tell your friends today when you talk to them? Because remember, you are a disciple. You are a missionary. You are somebody who is not necessarily just doing this just to listen and then go out about your merry way. I want you to go out and be an apostle, to be a missionary of truth, and to go out and spread the holy word of truth. Okay, you got that? But first, unless you have been in something like this, unless you have been, and many of you have been in war, maybe whatever, but this was the closest thing I ever came to what was a battle scene. This was like something I've never seen before. This was a war. It was cosmic. And everything shut down. People were trying to get home. People were walking across the Brooklyn Bridge. Everything was shut. Cell service stuff. People didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. Now, granted, it's an island, Manhattan, but still. And it put me into this thing about, well, wow. I was talking to some very good, fine folks from my Patriot Supply. And the response to preparewithlionel.com has been incredible. And it's not because this is a fundraiser or we're trying to get the votes for the best album. We're talking about the number of people who recognize the severe, imminent, and existential threat that a food emergency will pose, and it will occur. And they go to preparewithlionel.com. Think about that. There are some trends that are not good. Yes, this is a wonderful company. They are the best in the business. But when there are people saying emergency food, I don't feel safe anymore. I don't feel that, because remember, it's not that the food disappears, the stores close. Let me say this again. It's not that there's no more grain, there's no more cattle, there's no more what happened? No. I mean, there might be a diminution of that, but that's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about stores closing. Because you don't realize what you do. You go to a store and that's what you do. And you've got stuff stored, but that's not the way our society works. When stores close, when distribution chains shut down, it's over. It's done. And chaos sets in. And that's when we lose our mind. Preparewithlionel.com. Right now, you can save $200 off a 3-month emergency food order kit. Preparewithlionel.com. 25-year shelf life, 21 varieties, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Just go and look and see this. Look at what's there. This is packed and prepared for professionally. This is Armageddon style. I mean, I don't want to use that term, but this is not for a weekend. Let's stick a couple of these in our pocket. No. This is for 3 months. Preparewithlionel.com. Preparewithlionel.com. Okay. Here's what I want you to understand very, very carefully. Number one of the things I learned during this, which is very interesting, and I want you to take notes of this. Because when I look back and I'm thinking, Mrs. Ellen and I are thinking, nobody's even, CNN, I think CNN had on this Venmo. I think the Pentagon, they had the flag and that story. We can go on with it. We can go on and on about the Pentagon, but they had some ceremony at like 6:30 in the morning. It's like, why are you doing this? There are still no pictures that anybody has of anything flying into the Pentagon. Did you see those pictures? That 3-frame? It's the Loch Ness monster. I know this is old. I know nobody cares. But even with the Zapruder film, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? Okay, listen carefully. This is the most important thing in the world. Number one, we always need an enemy. There was a wonderful BBC documentary years ago called The Power of Nightmares. And The Power of Nightmares dealt with, you have to have a boogeyman. You have to have somebody to concentrate your fear and your targeting of the enemy. And if we don't have something to fear but fear ourselves, forget it. Now, rule number one, write this down. When Republicans are in charge, the enemy, the existential threat, the terrorists, if you will, are foreign. 9/11, Bin Laden, Zawahiri, Zarqawi, Al-Qaeda, Muslim Brotherhood, all this stuff. Bad guys, foreign, Muslims, turbans, hats, funny names, religions, names we can't pronounce, names that sound like Ralph Cramden, Muhammad. And this is Muhammad. Right? We can't even say it. And that's it. And we prefer that we don't. There was Bin Laden, smelly. Looks like he's always smelling something feculent. That's the best picture he's got. There's the dark. Remember the dark Bin Laden? He was like really black. Dark. I'm sorry, his skin was dark. He was sitting inside this house and he was going over these things. Dark. And he's right-handed. The picture, remember the picture of Bin Laden shooting the AK-47? He's left-handed. Boom. Oh, he shot him one time. Give it back to you. That's okay. He had Marfan syndrome. He had Marfan syndrome. Benazir Bhutto said, no, Mullah Omar killed him. Wait a minute. Other one said, no, he died in the Emirates. He had Marfan syndrome. It's what Lincoln had. He had dialysis. We didn't know anything. On 9/11, Bush is talking with the brother. And we've forgotten all this. Okay. Because there's all kinds of little dots. And if nobody connects them, they just, there's dots. You know, when you buy a puzzle, you don't just buy the puzzle to buy the puzzle. You got to put the puzzle together. That's when you're complete. Okay. So who were the bad guys? Those ones. Now, that also was perfectly in sync with PNAC, Project for a New American Century, the actual real neocons, Straussian neocons, Pearl, Wolfowitz, Addington, Cheney, neoconservatives, not the Victoria Nuland type per se, but I mean real ideological, who said, we are going to take our power, our military might, and spread democracy around the world. We're going to do this around the world. That's what we're going to do. Do you understand that we're going to spread democracy around the world? We're going to go and that's the way they talked. They meant that. They believed that. That's what they thought. That's the way they thought. They're dead serious about this. I mean, really, they were like, fellow travelers or something. Okay, fine. Now, let's cut to this one. The Clinton administration. Terry Nichols. Remember? Timothy McVeigh. Oklahoma City. Ruby Ridge. Waco. David Koresh. Local. The Mayak Report. Local. Militia groups. Local. Domestic. Democrats, no, they don't go elsewhere. No. Those bad guys, no. The people who blew that building up, people who took the Oklahoma City down, these were homegrown. These were rogue, lone wolf, crazy, right-wing, racist. You got it? You always need an enemy, the power of nightmares. Local. Remember the Mayak report was really interesting. And you know who was so instrumental in that? One of the greatest sources of all this, Alex Jones. Before Alex Jones flipped his wig, and I say that jokingly. It was, and he would say, here it is, go look it up. I looked it up, and there it is. Be on the lookout for cars with American flags. Be on the lookout for people who wear camouflage. And what do we have right now? The Democrats. And who are the bad guys? Ta-da! Proud Boys. The new 9/11 is January 6th. J6 is the new J. That's the new day. That's it. Do you hear what I'm saying? January 6th is the new 9/11. Nobody knows anything about 9/11. This was 22 years ago. That's a long time. There are people walking around working. They don't remember any of this. And not only that, they heard of it, but they never followed up on it. And you know who didn't follow up on it? The people in the media. They think nothing of it. Nobody cares about this. Nobody remembers this. Nobody's even thinking about this. Forget that. We're talking about this. I'll give you another reason why people don't want this. Now, listen to me carefully. If you have any suspicions, any beliefs, any idea, any notion, anything, and I'm not saying this, I have never said this because I have no proof of this. I have a lot of suspicions. I have a lot of interesting, I think, circumstantial evidence that I want to pursue further. But I have never believed, never thought for a moment that members of the of our immediate government, Bush, Cheney, Colin Powell, any of these people were involved in any active participation in the today's day of horror. Nothing. Covering it up could be a different story. Changing the... Remember Zelikow? Remember the 9/11 commissions? Remember how Bush and Cheney wouldn't testify. Then they would say, well, we'll testify, but not under oath and only if we're together. So I can sit on Cheney's lap. Okay, what does that prove? It's fishy, but it doesn't really prove anything. But let me just say this again. Be very, very clear. Never. There's no evidence of this. Never. There is no evidence at all of any direct involvement of Allen Dulles, the CIA, in the assassination of JFK. It is as close to circumstantial as you can get. Not yet. But there was a conspiracy. No doubt about that. And my official position, so that you also understand, so that there's no mistake in here, is that my beef has always been in the official statements regarding the forensics have nothing to do with certain cases that I know to be true about what happened, what caused it. Got an itch here. All this stuff. No. Now I can't give you an alternate. I'll give you an example. If we walked into a house, and I've told you this before, if we walked into a house and there's a woman, let's say there's an elderly woman and she's handcuffed behind her back, bound and gagged, and shot 11 times in the back of the head. We have to ask ourselves, is this NASH? And those are the 4 types really sources of death. Actually, it's 5. NASH, it's the acronym. Natural, accidental, suicide, homicide. And also unexplained. So NASHU or NOSH or whatever, or UNASH. Okay, so you look at this and we say, well, that is not suicide. That is not accidental. It's not natural. So it's homicide. Who did it? I don't know who did it. Why would somebody want her killed? I don't know. What could have caused this? I don't know. Did anybody hear the? I don't know. All I'm saying is that if you tell me this is suicide, you're wrong. This is homicide. Just like with Epstein. This is not suicide. It's homicide. Death caused by a human being or human beings. I don't know who did it. I don't know why they did it. I can guess. We think in a linear way. We don't go out and we don't imagine all these things that aren't there. But this particular question, the official narrative, the official statement that you've given me regarding Epstein, let's say as an example of being suicide, no, it's homicide. And the official narrative from NIST and all these other people, the 9/11 Commission and Hamilton and Kane, was the worst. Throw it away. Nothing. They have no. The NIST report is ridiculous. It's absolutely the biggest pile of dog ejusta you can imagine. Period. End of discussion. No, that doesn't mean I know who did what. No. But like all government things, wrap it up. Let's go. Come on, let's go. Don't spend a lot of time. The quicker you wrap this up, the quicker we can say, we did it, we're exhausted, now let's move on, because we don't want people hanging around here. Now, why do you think Democrats, or anybody for the government, would not want anybody spending a lot of time on this? Very simple. They do not want you in the position of becoming used to the notion of questioning the motives of government. They don't want you doing that. They just don't like you doing that. Move on. Even if it's not a big deal. No. Because we don't want you making this connection. Tragedy, cover up. Tragedy, causation. Tragedy, they knew it. No, stop. We don't want you even involved in it. Okay? What I have been trying to do since the beginning of time, since we began talking, is always tell you, make sure you go in a linear way and do not confuse evidence with what you hope or what you believe or what you suspect of being true. That's that. But let me tell you right now, what you were seeing, and I'm going to say this again, January 6th is going to be the 9/11. And the narrative is easy. There it is. There they are. There's the Proud Boys. There's that guy. There's Joe Biggs. There's the Valkyrie shaman dude. There he is. And there's this Denny Terrio or whoever he was that they gave 27. There he is. There they are. No doubt that. They're not government agents. And we'll get to that piece. They're not. Oh, no, they're there. This was January 6th. This is the enemy. And this is Democratic Party, enemy being domestic. This is another example of domestic terrorism. White supremacist, white separatist, white nativist, white nationalist. You got it? See how this works? That's the narrative. Why? The power of nightmares. You always have to have a bad guy. Always. Now, who are not the bad guys today? China. You might say, is it Russia? But no, the bad guys are Russia, but the good guys are Ukraine. So it's different. That's a NATO sponsor. That is a Victoria Nuland production. That's a military and industrial complex, war profiteering, post-NATO, this is the remnant, this is just post, Cold War, Russophobic, Kremlin baiting. That's almost like a vestige, but very, very profitable. Oh my God. A word on that. If you're going to be a real military tactician and you say, I represent the new Defense Department, my teams are hackers, weirdos, crooks, nerds, freaks, intellectual types, I'm not pointing to me, psychologists, psychiatrists, people who are themselves involved in all kinds of weird stuff. You understand what I'm saying? That's what we need to do. If we have a war next time, there is going to be a destruction of our grid. And this is what I'm telling you. And I think you know what I'm saying is absolutely true. We're going to have, if you want to destroy us, you don't have to blow things up. I mean, you can do that, but that's very bad PR. Very, very, very bad PR. And also very, very, it's just unnecessary. You don't need to do that. And by the way, there we go. That's the private channel. That's the private channel. But you don't have to do this. You see what I'm saying? Remember, if I went, and I'm sure there are people who are assigned to this. I know if we go to the deepest, darkest corridors, and by the way, don't think CIA, NSA. Think, commercial, think corporate, think industrial. Don't always think that everything's the CIA. It doesn't work like that. The CIA is, to me, that's the last place. Any place that has a card or the parking lot, that's the last place I'm looking. There are other people who aren't really involved in, they don't have a named organization. Okay, make a long story short. If I went and I said, hey, listen, Victoria Nuland, I know how we can maybe shut Russia down, or we can shut down whatever, France or anybody else, whatever. But it doesn't involve firepower, doesn't involve planes, it doesn't involve getting rid of our own military. What? No. First of all, we always have to deplete our own reserves of stuff, which is kind of iffy. That means we got to buy more. That means our friends, the military industrial complex war profiteers, the war folk, they love us because we give them money, they give it back to us. And you want to hire some 22-year-old college dropout nerd to hack a what? To hack a grid? Yeah, no. What does that cost? Nothing. His salary and some computer time. No. We need bombs. We need aircraft carriers, logistics, support personnel, uniforms, people. No, I need to justify this money that I'm going to end up stealing. Plus, we got to give some to Zelle. We got to give some over here. You know how this thing works. What you're talking about would be effective, but we don't want to be effective. I wouldn't be effective, but we wouldn't be profitable. No, but Victoria, you don't understand. I can wipe. I know you can do this. Can you imagine if we had war games and there was not one shot fired? All of a sudden, they say, ready, commence. It just shuts down. That's why when I talk about food and stuff, I'm dead serious. This is today's world. This is where we are today. These days of blowing things up, blowing that, and believe me when I tell you, there's so many. There's so much. There are so many moving parts to this. You can't believe. There's so much. But. So what we're seeing right now is this new world, this new thing that's happening. 9/11 is no more. January 6th is it. Another thing too is, in the Republican world, the terrorists are always foreign. In the Democratic world, the terrorists are homegrown. And let me also tell you something. You do recognize that as we speak, warfare, there will always be warfare. There will always be this election right now as we are talking. Look at this. So this National Review. Rich Lowry. Yes, Joe Biden is corrupt. These are the most milquetoast. I just get these things that come across the screen. This paleoconservative stuff, it's just so old, it doesn't even play. Today changed everything. Today, 22 years ago, changed everything for me. Let me tell you what changed. Not the event, the coverage. I was there it's kind of like, in a way, Daniel, in a way. It's almost like when Vietnam veterans were there and they couldn't believe what they were reading in Stars and Stripes, and they couldn't believe what they were reading from the news from home. It's like, that's not what's going on here. That's the way I felt. That's not what's going on. 9/11 was the greatest. It was the font, or the fount, depending upon where you're from, of what people call conspiracy theories. It was at the nascent period of the internet, and when it all merged perfectly. It was, you had people out. It was all of a sudden. Now remember, in the old days, JFK, you had Mark Lane. And then you had another guy. Well, if there was another guy who had more independent stuff in his garage than you could imagine, who had his own mini Warren report, you never heard about him. Never heard about him at all. Nowhere. But with the internet, you heard about everybody at one time. And this is before the internet was regulated. This is before the internet was shut down. This is before any of it. It was the greatest time ever. I heard stuff. I saved some report. I saved some stuff. That was so good. There were some smart people who came out of nowhere and said, wait a minute. I studied this. Remember Dylan Avery, Loose Change, all this cottage industry. It was fascinating. And here's what they did. They weren't into jumping into the therefore. Therefore, it's France involved. They didn't do this. They just they loved evidence. And the evidence is what I care about. I don't care about the conclusion. The evidence is what I want. It's when all of this stuff that we're going through right now started. And it was great. Some was nuts, of course. Some was, yes, we had some people who were. But it was at a period, it's when everything that we're doing right now started. And I was overwhelmed. And it was at the time when people like Alex Jones came along and others, and they were like, wow. And this is before Ben Shapiro and before Candace Owen. They were, I don't know how old they were. They were younger, but it was before them. It was before these folks it was before, this Dennis Prager and goodness, all that gobbledygook. It was before really Fox News or sort of. I mean, well, Fox News was there, but Fox News would never go into that because why? Because it was Bush. Because Bush was in charge, and they wouldn't even remotely. But it was a point. It was a critical moment. It was like, put it this way. In terms of what we do, it was like when the Beatles came along. It changed everything. It changed everything. It's the most incredible thing in the world. And it was when citizen journalism came about like nobody's business. It's some of the greatest and the brightest. And I've seen stuff that just incredible. And for the first time, when I would say, well, what do you think this is about? They would stop me and say, wait a minute, what are you saying? What are you getting at? Silver Fox says, my understanding is that Enrico Tarrio identifies as Afro-Cuban and his status is Cuban-American. However, you'll never hear him described as such by the MSM. Could very well be if you're, and you're right, which is into strict conformity. I mean, they would put it this way. It'd be better if his name was Buddy Strickland from Dothan, Alabama, with a kind of a Marshall Tucker hat and pointy cowboy boots. That would be perfect. But by the way, and another thing too, Mr. Fox, and I thank you, sir. What's important about Enrique is that they would have preferred that he be something else, because this kind of goes against believe me, they want this. Now, let me go back and tell you again. Democrats they believe in this thing about this is MAGA. I read today that there is going to be, I love this, that there is going to be a binary election between MAGA and Biden. I've told you this a million times, and you know this. Biden's on his way out. Vietnam just absolutely killed him. Vietnam, when he said good night, good evening, Vietnam, I'm going to go to bed, all that stuff. That, it's done. It's finished. It's over. They're going to make a deal with him. Hunter's going to plead to something kind of nominal. And they're going to let him do his stuff. And they're going to just, whatever. Still, either way, I say to you, my dear friends, either way, listen very carefully. It's fascinating as how this thing works. Guess who's here to celebrate? No, who? Kamalas Downtown talking about 9/11. Well, at least something. At least it's something. Did you see Kamala dancing? That's all I'm going to say. What we saw, what I will never forget about this day 22 years ago, is what people saw in Lahaina. And people, whenever they take a building down or whenever they do construction, they normally have chain link fence around something. Maybe they're working on a pipe, or they have a little chain link fence and these little makeshift, whatever. People would put pictures, sometimes second, third generation, like FedEx Kinko copies. And they say, have you seen my father, Joseph, whatever. And his picture, a picture of him smiling. And you may or may not be able to, this is before like color printing was that good, but. And remember, this is not social media was not like that. I mean, there's no Twitter, no nothing. It was just nothing really. So you see, it's one. I'll never forget this one sign. It was picture after picture after picture lined up next to each other. All these pictures. Have you seen? And I wanted to say, where would I see this person? Do you think he's lost? Do you think he's walking around on, Ludlow Street, wondering where am I? I'm not trying to be cool, because they didn't even know. They didn't even know what this meant. There are people who just never came home. There are people who worked at the Trade Center or around there. Do you know the number of people when Rudy Giuliani signed this emergency order that allowed expedited death certificates? People were probating wills and people were saying, I'm out of here. You got a big court case coming up? I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm finished. See ya. You got a nasty divorce case coming up? I'm starting all over again. I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm done. I can go any place I want. I start a new life over. A new life. I'm dead. They declare me dead. I'm dead. And I get to go to an island or someplace else. And I'll go and I'll find the name of some person who tragically died right around the time when I was born. I'll get their birth certificate and start all over again. I'll be this person who died as an infant, this person who died. Then I go when I got a driver's license. Here's my birth certificate. Hey, and I'm Jerry Schmadalkin. That's who I am. Yep, that's me. This happened all over the place. This is just, you cannot believe what we are seeing. There was a story. Listen to this. There was a story of a guy. I think the Daily News had this, but he was apparently stepping out on his wife, and she called him at work. I think it was a security guard or something at the World Trade Center, but he had a gumara, some pieza at Rockaway or someplace else, away from the city. She calls him up. How you doing? Fine. Where are you? I'm at work. Now she knows something's up because she's watching TV. This guy's doing the horizontal mambo with his girlfriend somewhere else. How's everything going at work? Fine. Any excitement? No, not really. She says, listen, are you near a TV? Yeah, he says, turn it on. He said, what channel? She said, any channel. And he turned it on and realized, oh no. Oh wow. The individual stories, the stories from firemen, first responders, police, what they saw, and the numbers of people who never were questioned. And when you go back and you look at the event that day, there are all these people who said it was the most incredible. Firemen. Now remember, we elevated the image of the fireman to the point of, it wasn't the cops anymore. It was a fireman. You wanted your daughter to marry a fireman, not a cop. It was a fireman. That was macho. That was masculine. And they were talking about how they saw basically molten steel, just like and one guy said, like a foundry. They're sitting around in their not rec room, but their kitchen, whatever, in their firehouse, and they're describing it. Nobody talked about it. Nobody's asking, how did Giuliani know that they said the building was going to fall? Building's no fault. Nobody, just nothing. But there's my friends in the news business. Well, there I was. And I got the call, and I got into my car, and I drove over, and I couldn't make it past the Brooklyn Bridge, and I had to steadfastly make it to the station, and I went on strike. That's it. All about them. Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing your story. And I saw something very, very interesting. Number one was the sense of chaos. Number two, a weird sense of calm. Not calm, but there's nobody yelling. And I saw people, this was so interesting, I think, people who would not normally see each other. A black young, 19-year-old hip hopper, urban dude talking to a hard hat, Queens, tough, whatever it was. And they're looking at each other, and it was a WTF back and forth. We had a local Irish pub in the neighborhood, and everybody, this is where people went to die. This was a neighborhood joint. It brought everybody together. It was a public house. It was like an Irish pub. Whenever somebody died, you go to that, and then you go back for the party afterwards. They had birthdays there, and they had anniversaries there. More famous people than you can imagine. I saw Keith Richards there. I mean, it was just this local place, local, and everybody just went there. And it was in the morning, obviously, and business was booming because people were just freaking out. And there was a woman standing there who's now deceased, but she had on a jacket, and she went down for something, and she's just covered in her back. Her back was that dust, and everybody had this. I'll never forget this guy that I did not particularly care for. I'm sure he's probably gone by now, but he looked at me and he just said, it was the weirdest thing. Anybody who walked in with a lanyard to a bar, anybody with a lanyard, free drinks. Anybody. Cops, but firemen, but also the crane operators. There was this wonderful friend I met who's a big crane operator. He was just wonderful. We became buddies, and they brought the largest crane. I think there were 2 of these in the world, and just explained to me how they put them. Why did they immediately want to remove all of the steel? Why was it important to put it on tractors or trailers, get rid of it, put GPS units to make sure nobody stopped, to take them straight to Fresh Kills or whatever, I forget, in Staten Island, and then so they could be sent to China or wherever it was? Do you know how much steel, STEAL, STEAL, do you know how much there was and what that represents in terms of money, pure profit? Do you know where that goes? Where did that go? And also, was it category? There's DNA in there. There's DNA. This is to identify people. There are people who've never been identified. Let me say this again. There are people who just, there's no bodies to get. You assume maybe they called their loved ones, maybe they didn't. You don't know. It's just gone. They're not here anymore. Gone. Thousands. And nobody in the morning, that was a hub. You would go into this building for not just because of your business, you went there because of other stuff. And what's also interesting to note is that people didn't leave an itinerary. I'm going here, and then I'm going to go to Masters. You just, okay. So you assume, and don't forget the people who just deliberately just didn't show up, that just disappeared, never showed up. If you've got a sentencing that day in court and you don't show up, and I also want to tell you something. Remember something. Whenever something bad happens, government, FEMA, always learn. They learn what to do next time, and they learn what not to do next time. And I'll let you think about that. Everything is a dress rehearsal for everything. Everything is a beta test for everything. Every time something goes wrong, the next time we have anything involving a contagion or any kind of health emergency, and you have to immediately deliver stockpiles of either vaccines or medication, whatever, they have learned new ways, new channels that they would have never thought before. Now, my friends, let me stop you right now and tell you something. In speaking of Americans, I don't know why I love this. I don't know why this meant so much to me. But I've always loved people who fought back. Mike Lindell has been given so much grief and so much. He's now being sued for a $20 gajillion because of this or that. I can't comment on the merits of the case. I don't know that much about it. But I do know his intrepidity, his steadfastness, his resolve, and what he does and how he's built up the MyPillow company is incredible. Right now, if you go to mypillow.com, promo code Lionel, you get a free gift. And you can also go and just look at peruse the fare, peruse the goods, his wares, and you will be amazed and flabbergasted and stunned by how much is available right now for you. It's the most incredible thing in the world. And I say this to you, and I repeat this to you, and I'm telling you, mypillow.com. But his deposition, I loved it when he said, I've had enough of this. Well, you know what? I've had enough of it too, Mike. And that's why we support you. MyPillow.com, promo code Lionel. MyPillow.com, promo code Lionel. Go right now and receive a free gift. Now, I understand, and I don't want you to think for a moment that I don't know this, but absolutely no one has any interest in 9/11. I recognize this. We are a country who has the attention span of a gnat. We are concerned right now over the silliest of events that may or may not make sense. I recognize that whatever I'm trying to do, it doesn't really mean anything, but I don't care. We are going to continue trying our best to do a couple of things. Bring the information to you, but also, and I know this sounds rather lofty, to teach you new ways to think. And we recognize, this is Alan and I in particular, that we will never be able to accomplish half, a tenth of what but doesn't mean we're going to stop. Let me tell you a new one. Let me tell you a source of great frustration. Great frustration to me. Right now in New York, there is a place, there's a YouTube channel that is called Market of Sweethearts in Queens, where there's open air prostitution is seen. And it's America, or the U.S., in New York and others, is being touted and will be promoted as the hub, the epicenter for sex tourism. Mrs. L's been saying this forever because she's known this, and it's coming to a fruition now. A number of mothers said, we're going to go and we're going to protest this. You know how many showed up? 6. Now you might ask yourself, why is this important? Why should I care? And if it's New York, well, it's New York. And didn't Amsterdam do that? And what's the big deal? I guess, look, it's the world's oldest profession, and you will talk your way out of it into not doing anything. It's what you and we and everybody does. You talk yourself, what you're doing is the complete and deliberate degradation of the importance of sex and intimacy, and also the promotion of human trafficking by the objectification and the commercialization of sex as a new form of commerce. And those numbers are going to get lower and lower and lower. And it's a part ever since OnlyFans and this trampy, skeevy, slutty, skanky production of how the internet has produced and encouraged this solipsistic nonsense. And we're going to bring it to your attention, and you can do whatever you want. It's not about morals. It's not about morals. It's about something even bigger. And I recognize that 99% of the people will not understand what this means and will move on. But we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop what we're doing because it's too complicated. There is still a place on YouTube and social media for really deep stuff. God bless Lex Friedman. God bless Joe Rogan to an extent. Because for every, kind of seemingly unimportant Joe Rogan, there's a very critical story that's being done. There is so much wonderful math and physics and intel stuff that's it's brilliant. But if you want to see something, watch what happens to any kind of message. And in some cases, not all, but in some cases, by making it popular, you make it cliched because people will double down in what they believe is the reason for that. Somebody will say, why did that video get 10 million hits? Well, I'm going to do more of that. Wait a minute. Do you think that video was important? No. Do you? No, but it got 10 million hits because we live by numbers. You know that. Well, we got a 4. Let's go out to eat. Let's check Yelp. Who got the highest rate? What? They got a 5, but a 6? Wow. Got to go to that one. You see how there are some of us who, on like if you use Uber, you've got it. I've got a rating on Uber. What have I a rating? I don't do anything. I pay the. What are you rating me for? What do I do? But everybody's being rated. So consequently, do you see how people chase metrics? People chase numbers. And whatever happens is the best way to kill somebody is to say, make them popular. Not always, but in some cases. The best way to kill country music is take the stupidest song, take Achy Breaky Heart, make that go to number 1, and you're going to kill country music. Because somebody's going to say, that's it. I'm going to do the next Bakey Achy Heart. And that's the way that works. So there is so much to consider, so many thoughts, so many areas that the enemy is hitting you with. We got 9/11, we got this. Think about what I said about how the enemy is, depending upon who it is either the enemy is either foreign under Republican administrations and domestic in terms of Democrats. Think about that. Focus. Always ask yourself. That's all. And you have a great and glorious day. Let me also say something to you. Let me ask you very, very, very clearly to please make sure you follow Lynn's Warriors at X on X. I can't say X on Twitter, and Lynn's _Warriors on Twitter, YouTube, and at YouTube at Lynn's Warriors. Some of the most important and most critically relevant and necessary stuff you have to have. It is that simple. Our good friend Moorman says, one of my most poignant memories, people of all races, walking away from ground zero, covered in that gray dust, all looking exactly the same. No race, no color, no gender, just people thinking, where do we go from here? That's one of them. That is extremely poignant. By the way, Moorman, look at this notion. Look at this thing called pyroclastic. It's called pyroclastic dust. And it is seen in volcanoes. Volcanologists will point it out. Some people will ask, why do you see, if you have imagine this is a interesting shape. If you have this and why is there this pyroclastic dust here? It's like if I took a brick and I dropped it, all of a sudden it hits the ground, it breaks apart, and there's dust and whatever it is. But as it falls, there's no dust. Little thing to think about. It taught me so much about looking at physics, architectural, structure, engineering. We one time were at Cooper Union one day, and we saw a man, I think it was University of Alaska, maybe if I'm recall. It's an older man who did a composite, a computer analysis of Building 7. It was incredible. Just destroyed NIST. Nobody cares about it. You heard this latest JFK one, Moorman and Fox? Did you hear this one? This latest one that says that there was one of the Secret Service folks said that they found the pristine bullet, the magic bullet. He said, I had it, I found it, I threw it on, whatever. But the bullet was found behind Kennedy, and then it fell. What? Is anybody talking about that today? No. Why? Because we don't care. We just don't care. Over time, when I went to it was a funeral. It was a memorial, and they had a grandchild of this deceased And I happened to be walking by the table, and they said, or somebody said, "Why don't you read something, honey, or read?" And she said, "I don't read." And I don't know if she meant I don't read in public. She was a teenager, like a senior. I don't read in public, or I don't, or I don't read. I don't know what it was, but it was one of those. I never forget that. And I think there are people today who just don't think. And what you noticed about covered in this dust, the gray dust, the pyroclastic dust, or whatever, for you to make that observation involves, dare I say, a degree of maturity and sobriety that many don't really get. And as Silver Fox brings up about the status of Tario and how people are trying to fit his particular demographic into the subject matter, it how do I say this? It doesn't. I don't think it's something that people would have necessarily cared for or even noticed, because sometimes there's a degree of, I hate to say it, there's a degree of sophistication and observation that is required that many people don't have or don't care to have. That's it. All right, dear friends, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, or I got more videos coming up, and also more about what's happening regarding the election. You do know that Biden's on his way out. As I've been telling you, Newsom's coming in. This is going to be a binary move. Check out the top front page, if you will, of Drudge, and you will see where that narrative is going. Because remember, Drudge is the official amanuensis and dimbox of these other people. In any event, thank you, dear friends. Have a great and a glorious day. Don't ever change. I mean that sincerely. And please, for the life of me, I ask you right now to never forget these words. The monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya. Ta-ta.